G'day and welcome to Downunder Downunder, coming to you from the stunning southeast corner of South Australia, commonly known as the Limestone Coast. We're back in World Heritage listed Naracoorte Caves because last episode we just couldn't get through it all. So here we are back with Amy and Frank, and this is great to have you team on board again. Thank you very much for coming in. We're going to talk about Bat Cave today, and we're going to talk about the adventure caving that goes on here as well.
Okay.
So without any further ado, what type of bats live in Bat Cave, Frank?
Well, the common name is the southern bentwing bat,
Southern
closely
bentwing.
related to the common. It's the southern bentwing bat.
Yes.
Closely related to the common bentwing that lives up the east coast.
Okay.
But we believe they've been physically separated for so long, they've speciated into a slightly different subspecies. So
Wow.
the proper name, the correct name, scientific name is Miniopterus schreibersii bassanii.
That's a mouthful, isn't it?
Well, that's
Wow.
why we call them the southern bentwing.
Yes. Southern bentwing bat. That sounds good to me. How many bats would be in there, Amy?
Well, at this time of year, so we're coming up to May, this is just the end of the breeding period, so numbers would be around 40,000 in the cave.
40,000.
That's right. So we've had population monitoring going on here for the last 5 years, and it shows that the population is relatively stable within a range of about 30 to 40,000 bats. So at the end of the breeding season, we've got all the new babies that are flying. So they're going to leave the cave shortly with the adults for their overwintering. They'll come back around October later this year, ready to commence the breeding cycle again. And we do find that the population does drop between the when they leave and come back to breed. And that's quite natural, obviously, for populations, that they would lose probably old ones and young ones as well.
Yes.
And we've got researchers who are following the population and making sure that it does stay stable, and actually hoping to find ways to make sure it grows so that we don't lose the species.
And Frank, what is the best way to see these bats?
Well, there's a couple of good ways to see the bats. You can actually come and watch the bats fly out of the bat cave at dusk on any night in the warmer months. We even do tours over the summer holidays to exploit that. But you can also come on a bat tour and observe the bats within the cave using the infrared cameras we have in the cave, and we can zoom in and watch the bats up close.
Yep.
They are an endangered species, so it's an opportunity for us here at the caves to explain to people, visitors, why they are an important part of our ecosystem and why they deserve to be looked after.
Frank, do they have any special habits?
They've got quite a few different habits.
Yes.
They tend to breed in Bat Cave, the warmer cave, and but in winter they leave Bat Cave and they spread out throughout the countryside, go into cooler caves, which seems a bit the wrong logic. In winter I'd go somewhere warm, but the bats actually go to sleep for weeks at a time in the cooler caves, just relying on the body reserves without expending too much energy.
Like a hibernation sort of thing?
Well, it's not quite, because it's not for
quite.
the complete winter period.
Yes.
But it's a strategy to get over the lean winter time, because there's less insects for the bats to eat.
Okay. Through winter there is?
There is less insects for the bats.
Excellent.
Yep.
Now, Amy, were there any fossils of bats dug up at any time in this cave, in the Bat Cave?
Absolutely. And the fact that we find fossils of those bats tell us that they've been part of this ecosystem for a really long time. And we often think of the bats as our sort of time travellers, because they've always been alongside all the megafauna that went extinct, for example. And we find fossils of many species of bat, so not just the southern bentwing bat, which is what we showcase in our caves here, but many other bat species as well. So there are the forest-dwelling bats that do appear in our fossil record, and really it's an area that's really ripe for more study, to have greater understanding of what the diversity of the bats is in our fossil assemblages.
Excellent. Frank, you were saying off camera that sometimes the bats come into Blanche Cave, which is where we are.
Well, this cave, at the back end of this cave, it's actually cooler than a lot of the caves in the area. And some winters, the bats can use this cave to go into a torpor that semi-hibernation.
Yes.
It's a fascinating time, but we do have to be very careful how we approach the bats at that time of year.
Okay.
We can still often take the opportunity to come and look at them in the cave, but we have to be very careful not to disturb them when they're in that torpor, because they'd be liable to have heart attacks if they try to fly when the body temperature's as low as it gets.
Gee, you know so much about them, don't you?
Well, I had a good teacher.
Now, I know that bats are nocturnal, but how do they see again?
Well, when they're flying around at night,
Yes.
they navigate by eyesight. They use their eyes, just like all mammals, basically.
Right.
So they've got very good, well-adapted eyes to work in low light. So they can navigate by the moon and the stars to find the way around to the hunting grounds and back to the cave. But within the cave, they don't see, they use echolocation. They rely on the echoes of the noises they make coming back, and their brains can paint a picture of what's around them using that echo. They also use that echo to find the prey. So when they're flying through the sky at night, they can detect the insects and things they eat by using echolocation.
Wow. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? So what do these bats eat?
Mainly little insects that
Yes.
fly around at night. So different species of bats eat different size things. So the sound that the bats produce to echolocate is tuned to pick up things about a centimetre long. So we tell people our bats generally eat little moths and mosquitoes. And I've been told they can eat up to about 40% of their own body weight in any one night in summer.
40%? Wow.
And if that's 40% of the body weight in mosquitoes, it's worth having them around.
Yeah, we like to tell our visitors, often people come with a lot of preconceptions about bats and
Yes.
maybe a little fearful of them. They get a bad rep, of course, in media and in movies, but actually they're such an important part of the ecosystem, and we've got a lot to be grateful for, the fact that they do eat lots of those mosquito pests. So as well as, of
Which
course,
is a
all the
good
other...
thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Things
that's
that eat
right.
us, things that eat our crops.
That's right,
Exactly.
yes.
They're worth having.
Speaking of movies, have you ever had Batman or Batwoman in
Well, we have
on
a few
tour?
children come here dressed as Batman or
Do you?
Batwoman, but not the actual TV character or film star.
Right.
However, there is a bat specialist from the South Australian Museum called Terry Reardon, and he often gets called Batman.
Yeah, he's our honorary Batman.
Yes.
He's an honorary
He's the
Batman.
expert. He's the one who taught us about the bats here.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's his name again?
Terry Reardon.
Terry Reardon. Very good. Oh, look, if I came up to Naracoorte to experience the bats, what else could I see here?
Well, there's lots. There's pretty caves with stalactites and stalagmites. They're really spectacular caves.
Yes.
There's also the fossils to look at and to learn about, but we also can provide an opportunity to go adventure caving, where people take people crawling
Adventure
through
caving.
small spaces. So it's not everybody's cup of tea, but
No.
often people that start off a little timid come out looking for even more adventure.
Is that
So
right?
it's a great introduction to that. We can give people the hard hats to wear and get them to crawl through. And, you know, if they did want to come down and make a weekend of it or whatever, we do have a fantastic campsite,
Yes.
powered sites, hot and cold running water, even laundry facilities. And we do have a bunkhouse where people
Okay.
can hire, particularly set up for schools, but it's suitable for public as well.
Brilliant. So we're looking at some footage now of adventure caving, and this is Jake going down to, and he works here at the Naracoorte Caves, doesn't he?
He does.
So we've got him going down into the caves to do some adventure caving for us.
This is in Stick Tomato Cave or Wet Cave. It's got a couple of names.
Stick Tomato
And
Cave.
it's a
How
great-
did it get that name?
Well, one entrance has got two openings. One opening is referred to as the stick entrance and the other is the tomato entrance.
Oh.
So, but this is a great cave to start in because you can walk through most of the cave and choose to do the adventurous activities if you wish. If you don't want to do the really crawly, squeezy things, you can in fact go around it. So a lot of parents will start off with the intention of sending the kids through, and they intend to walk around, but once they see the kids do it, they'll start doing it as well. And they come out for walking a foot taller,
Wow.
having fun.
One of the things that is great about the adventure caving, and particularly for school groups or even you might have workplaces that come, is it's really fantastic team building exercise because it does rely on a lot of communication between each other in the cave, because you do go into the dark zone. As you can see with Jake in there, he's got his helmet and his light, so we clearly have lights in there, and you're in there with a guide, but wonderful opportunities for building your team.
Wow, that's really good, Amy and Frank. Brilliant. I love this idea of adventure caving, but it's not for me though.
It's not for
I
everyone.
couldn't get down into that kind of crack down there. I just couldn't do that.
Sure.
Well, before we take you in there, we introduce you to the caving activity first and gradually build up to this sort of thing. So you don't jump in the deep end.
Yep.
We start with relatively easier crawls.
That's right, and there's lots of support as well. So Jakins would have done, this is called the slot, and he's done that many times. But when we take visitors through there, the guide is with you the whole way, talking you through, and there's no pressure to go quickly or to push yourself beyond what your limit might be. But obviously the opportunity's there to challenge yourself and have that sense of reward and achievement at the end.
And so you reckon people come out a foot taller, do they?
Well, and it's really a thrill as a guide when you get those people that are a little timid to start off with.
Yes.
And you talk them through, and they start with easy things, gradually get up, and they're looking for the tighter holes when they're on the way out. So
yes.
Yeah, it really is a satisfying aspect of our job here.
So when you say school groups, you're talking about school groups that come here to the World Heritage listed Naracoorte Caves, and then they can stay here, can they?
That's right. They can stay in our Weryanda bunkhouse accommodation. We can cater for up to about 50 students and teachers, and they can spend a few days here. We do also have the campsite with the powered sites and camp kitchen and a barbecue and things like this. So there's it's a fantastic place to come and stay for a day or two, and the students get to experience a lot of not just the excitement of the adventure caving, but they learn a lot about fossils and geology and
That's right.
and bats and things.
How many caves did you say were here, Amy?
There are 28 known caves.
28 known caves.
Yes.
So there are more being explored or developed, or?
We certainly, we don't go into all of our caves. That would be perhaps the first comment I'd make. Some of them are really sensitive.
Yes.
So we, obviously being World Heritage, we want to protect the caves in as pristine condition as possible. And caves are really fragile, sensitive environments. So because they're so closed, they take a long time to recover when there is damage. In terms of exploration, we generally actually don't support exploration for exploration's sake. Certainly exploration has played a really important part in the past on our park for finding the caves and fossil sites, but exploration of caves can also lead to damage of caves. So we tend to be more conservative around the types of activities, but certainly where we take the public, and we have other caves where specialist groups, recreational caving groups for example, or researchers might have a need to go. So it might be that we actually would like a bit of cave mapped because there's some elements that we'd like to better understand for managing them, or certainly scientific research purposes. So the uses of the caves are really broad and varied, and of course as a visitor you get a taste of being underground, and you learn a lot about the activities that do happen and the science that happens, whether that might be like in Blanche Cave, there's a fossil dig here, so you get to actually look right out over an excavation pit and hear directly about the science. But there's often science going on in other sites, and the guides will integrate that on the tour because it's not possible to get the visitors to everywhere, of course. As much as it would be nice to see that some of the spaces are really small or very delicate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is well answered, I think, Frank, don't you think?
I think so.
Thanks.
Excellent, excellent, Amy. Thank you very much for that. But look, we probably should finish up there, I reckon. And thank you both again for coming on board onto our Downunder Downunder show.
My pleasure.
And it's been really good to be here. There is so much to see and do here at World Heritage listed Naracoorte Caves that I think you've got to come and have a look at it for yourself. We showed you the opening and the entrance and so on and so forth, but now we're going to show you some footage of the the Wanambi Fossil Centre, and we're gonna leave you with that footage. So we'll catch up with you next time. See you later. Cool.